The Lockheed Martin C-130 Hercules is an American four-engine turboprop military transport aircraft designed and built by Lockheed Martin. Capable of using unprepared runways for takeoffs and landings, the C-130 was originally destined as a troop, medevac and cargo transport aircraft. Entering service in 1956 with the United States Air Force, the C-130 underwent many upgrades and variations over the years that followed, and today is the primary tactical airlifter for over 80 nations. The Indian Air Force signed a contract in 2011 to purchase 6 C-130J versions, which is the most advanced and sophisticated version of the C-130 Hercules. It has an extended fuselage, 4 Rolls-Royce AE2100 D3 engines with 29% increased thrust than the original version, and a myriad of electronic countermeasures and jamming suites. That's the version we are going to build today, so without further ado, let's get on with the build. So I chose the Minicraft kit in 1/144 scale to build this model, and as I open the box I am greeted with the first thing, which is an empty plastic bag. Well, I don't really know why that was done, but moving on, this is the first sprue bag and the second one with 2 identical sprues in each. Here's the third one with the clear sprues, the fourth sprue bag with the propellers and the engine nacelles, a fifth sprue bag with more propellers and engine nacelle assemblies, a sixth one with the fuselage halves and the wings, a seventh one with 2 identical sprues which have the wing halves, the elevators and a few other bits and bobs, followed by the instruction sheet. As we open the instruction sheet, we can see the sprue map, very nicely detailed, and about 15 steps in total for the assembly, although there are more steps when you start assembling, followed by the paint guide, which is of course gray for all the C-130s. This is followed by a very nicely printed decal sheet, very detailed, very crisp and clear, but I won't be using all of those decals because what I am building is an Indian Air Force version, so I will use my home printed decals on this build. Now the Minicraft kits are not very popular because of their fit issues and detailing, but on this kit, as you can see, there's a lot of detailing, especially in the floor here, a nice recessed detail there on the fuselage, and this was a surprising fact for me given that the feedback is not really very good in Minicraft kits. So I began with the pretty straightforward assembly of the fuselage interiors. But one thing which I would like to mention is that although there are a lot of locator pins to align the parts correctly, but still a lot of dry fitting had to be done in this kit to ensure that everything fits the way it should. I then painted the improvised Fevicryl cockpit grey blue, which I made by mixing Fevicryl white, black and a little bit of blue in various proportions, and I painted the cockpit floor with 4S silver spray paint. The assembly of the wing halves then began following the assembly of the nacelles, and as you can see here, there is quite a bit of positive alignment here in the wing sections as well. There's this little bit of exhaust detail in the engine nacelles which you have to fit, and that really brings out some depth into the detailing of the exhaust nacelle. I then began working on the assembly of the cockpit windshield, and as per the instructions, this is mentioned as the last step to be completed after the painting. However, from my experiences with various other builds, I have realized that this should be done before you move on to the filling or painting phase, because regardless of how good the fit is, it will invariably leave a seam line which, if you try to fill in after you're done the painting, it won't be possible without ruining the entire paintwork. And here you can see a seam line right along the entire length of the fuselage, so I filled that in and sanded off, and then I moved on to rescribing the lost panel line detail on the fuselage. I then assembled the wings into the slots that were given for attaching the wings to the fuselage, and you can see that the assembly is pretty good. Likewise for the horizontal stabilizers as well. A very prominent feature on the C-130Js is the IFR probe, or the in-flight refueling probe, on the port side right above the captain's cockpit. However, this detail is not present in the Minicraft kit, so I had to improvise and think of a way to reconstruct the IFR probe. So I got down into my spares box and pulled out a few spares, started building a little skeleton of the IFR probe, as you can see here, and then began working with a lot of putty and a lot of visualization followed by improvisation. I also used a little sprue here, which was actually cylindrical in shape, so it helped me in constructing the cylindrical structure of the IFR probe. As you can see, I'm drilling a hole here into the cylindrical sprue. This hole will actually house this little pipe sort of structure, which will eventually give it the shape of the IFR probe. And here's a look at the construction of a few antennae that are present on the C-130Js. These are also not part of the original Minicraft kit, so I had to scratch build them out. I then used a spare Mirage 2000 Oleo to construct the forward-looking infrared sensor, which is present under the nose of the C-130J. I've omitted the painting part of the fuselage here because I simply used a Bosnia gray paint to paint the entire fuselage, and I had already painted the interiors of the gear bays white. And finally, here you can see me attaching the doors and the undercarriage landing gear and the nose gear as well. And that completed the assembly of the fuselage, and I moved on to further detailing of the fuselage. And here you can see me cutting out strips of plastic card, and this was done to detail the formation lights on the C-130J. Although the kit includes these formation lights as decals, but you can see that it made all the difference in enhancing the overall look of the fuselage. The only significant bit of painting on the outside of the fuselage was the dielectric head on the leading edge of the vertical stabilizer, and I used turquoise blue Fevicryl color to paint the dielectric. I must say that the decals were very nicely printed, and the windows and doors were in the form of decals, and so they really detailed the fuselage very nicely. Alongside that, I printed my own Indian Air Force and Bharatiya Vayu Sena decals, and also the serial number for the C-130J. With a black Sharpie, then I detailed the exhaust heat deflector panels, which are present at the rear end of the engine nacelles in the C-130Js. And the last step was to fix the wingtip strobe lights, and that completed the C-130J model. And here are the final beauty shots of the finished model. So I'm sure you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed building the model. That being the case, please smash that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I will see you again very shortly on another video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye. Take care.